first of all, thank you again for joining us. And let's quickly start with the interview. So one, of course, the curious question comes is whenever an Indolist goes into education sector, so the audience wants to know that what was the motivating factor so that, other people who are in the industry, they also get similar kind of motivation. So what is that keeps you connected with the education sector?
So first of all, as you know, NIIT, which is 40 years old, will be 40 years this year. And the genesis was basically to look at how to build talent. And our motto of NIIT, the company, was bringing people and computers together successfully. That was the motive. Because at that time, the industry was not yet quite born. But we realized that there will be a massive shortage of talent if the IT sector in India has to grow. So it was born with the intent of bringing young people into the newer fields and started with IT, and over a period of time has grown into many other sectors. So as founders, somewhere in the late 90s itself, we were probably just 10 or 15 years old, and we had advisors who were directors of institutions like the IITs, IISc and so on. And they used to urge us as founders that, look, you're doing the company, you're doing everything going well, you have a software activity. Now, why don't you look at participating in the formal education system more formally? So that call actually then translated itself into a vision to build a new university. But if you were to ask me what is the drive behind of all of this, I have thought about this very often. And to me, the answer is very simple. The answer really is that all of us as founders, we are all IIT graduates. And I find, and that's probably why we all got together on this, is that we have a great sense of joy when we see growth in people. I think at the root of it, because there's a rational side of the brain, but there's rational brains only tells you how to do things, not why to do things. So I think the why stems from the fact that to this day, we continue to be delighted when we see young people progressing and doing well and growing. So the joy of seeing growth of people is perhaps the propelling force, and that's why I'm so involved. I was in my alma mater board, IIT, for 15 years. I'm one of the founders of the Indian School of Business. I started in a school which is now 123 years old, called the Scindia School. I'm on the board for the last 21 years now. And also I served briefly in the Delhi University Court, Vaishno Devi University in the north. And so I find the time to get involved in this just for my personal, should we say, sense of joy, to see people grow.
Great to hear that, and we would want more people from the industry to have a thought like you, so that we get the best of the education in India. So, sir, what is your style of leadership? What is your philosophy of leadership?
So I think this also centers around people at the core, as does the first idea. So the belief very strongly is that each one of us has much more potential than we are realizing at any point in time. As a leader, can you create, first of all, a very high level of aspiration for people? You have to inspire. So first role is to inspire people. I think the leader's primary role, if had to do only one thing, is to inspire people to a bigger objective. And then if you inspire well, then you are getting people to follow you, because your cause is bigger than any of us or bigger than any of them. But in getting excited about pursuit of the goal, people then start doing better than they think they are capable of. So the aspiration level of people rises if you inspire well. And once people's own aspiration grows, then they are capable of doing more than they ever did before. They start really understanding their true potential and they realize their potential. So as a leader, you have to inspire, and then you have to create a situation where people can do better than what they imagined. So the culture has to be created, which is pro-growth of people, which focuses on, which helps people to achieve their true potential. So again, you can see the same thread of growth coming through, but the leader's role, the style of leadership, is to help people realize their true potential. And it doesn't matter what field you're in then, because all the people who are with you are actually seeing themselves being capable of much more than they thought they were. And therefore, then starts the whole process of growth of the organization, because I do believe that the organization's growth is a derivative, is a dependent on the growth of people, not the other way around. That's a personal philosophy. It is not that if we do well, then we'll spend on training of people. We believe that if we educate people, then your organization will do well. So the cause and effect relationship is, and that's the style of leadership, if I can summarize it, helping people realize their true potential, putting a strong aspiration in front of them, which everybody feels very excited and satisfied with, and then let them do great things. Don't get in their way. Give them a situation where a good, proper, serious work done properly is appreciated and recognized, and there's nothing behind besides merit and sensitivity. And so then people rise to the occasion, as we call it, and rise to their own expectation, not to our expectation. So that's the style of leadership which has worked very well for the last 4 decades.
So now if we come to NIT University Neemrana, so every university has its core offering. I mean, a philosophy behind the courses, right? I mean, there's a particular value which you bring. So what is that logic behind the programs which are currently being offered, and what is the curriculum, and what is the core value proposition which you give to the students? If you could throw some light on that.
So, we fortunately had a lot of time to think about the university. We were not in a rush. And this is not a source of livelihood. If anything, this is where we are putting our own earnings as founders, because it makes us feel good. So we had a lot of time to think of this in the 90s. And we had the opportunity to interact with a lot of thinkers, senior academics, my professors, dean from IITs, people in the computer industry, a lot of time. And so we were thinking that if we are going to make a university, then it should be something distinctive. Just adding one more university to the list of long universities doesn't contribute from our side, because see, by then we were training millions of young people on IT in about 40 countries. So currently the number stands at something like 35 million people trained. So for us, the size was not a question ever. So we said, let's make a university which is distinctive, which can actually contribute to the evolution of higher education. Because all of us have known for a long time, all over the world, that reform in education is very, very difficult to do. It's a characteristic across cultures, across countries. So we said, if reform is difficult to do, why not set up one institution which becomes a role model of how higher education should be? So that is our aspiration. This is what excites us, that can we build one institution which people see over a period of time and say, they do this, they do this, they do this. Let's copy that. It would give us great pleasure if we become the basis of reform done laterally. That means institutions look at what we're doing. So we see NU as a role model of what higher education should be. This is our aspiration. So therefore, everything translates from that. So then we were saying, okay, where do we really need to do leadership, thought leadership? And there's a good university has dozens of things where you can do leadership, but we picked the 4 we thought we would work on for the first decade or 2 decades. And those we call as core principles. What will drive our actions, plans, and so on. And those core principles are derived from what we saw as the shortcomings of higher education. So those 4 core principles, a very short word, 2 words for each. One is industry linked. And industry doesn't mean manufacturing, it's a workplace. Where are people going to go and work? Whether it's government or industry or whatever. Because criticism of higher education, no one, those employers say this university don't care for what we want. So we said it should be linked to that. So it should be driven, and while it's contributing also, it should be driven by the real needs of society. That's the 4 core principles, industry linked. Second is technology based. Now that also comes from NIT's own strength of 40 years. So the university is only 10 years old. For 30 years we were working with technology. And so second should be technology based. Third was research driven, because India, after its liberalization in 91, we realized that we have to get better and better products, because in a controlled economy, in a licensed Raju, there's no real competition, so no incentive for companies to improve. But the moment you open up, and that liberalization started in 91, then the best should succeed, so people are competing. So to compete and to build product, you need research. So we said, let's put research in the DNA of the university. And for us, research also includes entrepreneurship. Because in the industrial era, research meant 10 years to design a product, 10 years to test it, and so on. Whereas entrepreneurship means that you start getting an idea and build it very quickly. And in the post-industrial world, in the knowledge economy, where we are seeing startups that college students have an idea, and by the time they finish, they can get a viable offering for the market. So for us, research-driven also includes entrepreneurship and innovation. So it's research, this is a third core principle. And the fourth is actually a much more philosophical idea. And you would know that our first chancellor or chairman, as we call it in the Private University Act of Rajasthan, was Dr. Karan Singh, member of parliament, one of the greatest living philosophers. So we requested him to be our first chancellor for one term, and then we requested him for a second term. So first 10 years he was our chancellor. And this fourth core principle actually is expressed also by the idea, the word we use is seamless. So seamless doesn't only mean that it's seamless across maths and physics and chemistry. That is only multidisciplinary. Seamless means man and nature. Us and our village next door, us and the industrial complex next door. Okay. So, for example, it's mandatory for a student to be involved with nature very deeply, because man and nature is the equation which has been disrupted. And we want to be a role model in that as well. So we have a hillock behind our campus, it's 1,000 acres, we are only 100 acres. We've taken the task to make it into a forest in the next 10, 15, 20 years, and that's happening. So seamlessness is a societal objective. It's a purpose of society. So therefore, we want our students to be deeply influenced by these factors. We feel that if we can make them relevant for the place where they will go to, whether they go for research or they go to a company or they go to IIS or whatever, they should be relevant. So what do those communities need? Secondly, they should be using technology, because technology is making so much possible. We saw it in the COVID time. I think our university is probably way ahead of anybody, simply because we've had 30 years of experience of technology before. Third is that they're entrepreneurs. We have a school of startups. We have a large number of startups which are coming up, because young, bright children are realizing that the way to go forward is not just to look for a government job. You know? It is to create something new. So this old phrase of not being job seekers but job creators. We were talking of that 15 years ago, even when we were thinking of the university. And the fourth is seamless. So the students have to do work on nature. They have to do work in the village. They have to go and teach in the government schools. So their feet have to be grounded in reality, so they understand what they're doing. So I don't know, it's a long answer, but I did want to say we picked a few areas for the first 10, 15 years where we want to excel. And then we'll pick up one more, and then we'll pick up one more. And so the core principles will keep adding on as we get many of them under our belt.
Sure. So, sir, if you could tell us a little bit about the various courses which are being offered. So, as I understand, we take course, and there are integrated courses, which is a little unique in itself. And, students, they are a little skeptical to go with an integrated course. So, if you could tell us a little more about what value those integrated courses, integrated MBA, and what does that bring to it?
Yeah, you asked that as part of the question. I should have answered, but I was giving you the foundations. Now, so if these are the objectives, that we should be relevant society, for each student should be relevant to go for higher education or something, then the subjects have to be such that when they go to those organizations looking for an opening, they should find it. Correct? So therefore, we started being very strong in technology, and we see technology as a basis. So these days, we see Digital India as a phrase. We're saying that everything has to be digital. Right? We see organization technology for transformation these days as a phrase. So technology is a foundation. It's a language almost. Okay, so even if a student is doing biology, biotech with us, or they're doing geographical information systems, the foundations of information has been. So we have computer science, we have electronics, we have geographical information systems, we have bioinformatics as one group of areas, and then we have management. And in management, it's management for financial services as a big area. That's been a big area. So for us, we don't have this artificial divide. We don't have departments, by the way. One of the universities doesn't have departments. We have these areas of study. And when courses are configured, they have to be seamless. I'm coming back to my word, because they have to be relevant. They have to be meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a range of courses, and universities, in our view, should grow slowly and steadily, and not one fine day you put up 20 buildings and say this is university, because then you get stuck in time. So our curriculum will evolve, but we are a university. We are not a management school. We are not a technical education. All those are silos. So university education has to evolve, and ultimately it should cover universality of knowledge. So therefore, subjects which we have started with are to do with where there's very quick professional reach, where there's a great shortage of talent, whether it's technology or different types of technology, or electronics or telecommunication, or biology, biotech is a big area, or management. Management is a general term. Management prepares students for any kind of job, right? So we have a range of programs that we are adding continuously, but as you probably would have noticed, we are being very mindful and thoughtful of staying on a path which is consistent, not just doing knee-jerk, this is demand, that is in demand, should be rolling out, because universities last for centuries. So we have to keep evolving. So our courses, whether they're in areas of computer science, all the cutting edge areas, we have biggest output of cybersecurity these days. But that's part of computer, right? Or data science. So those are things of the moment.
So I've seen that the university, it's very selective about the quality of the students which it takes in, and unlike some other universities which just roll up the seats, and they would expand and give a lot of courses to a lot of students. I have observed that NIT University in Imran, it's a little selective in that sense. So what is your vision, say, going 10 years ahead? Like, how do you want the university to grow?
So, well, first, as I said, it has to go in a measured step. And also, I do want to comment, when we say that many universities take whoever comes, I think let's realize there is a very big need for higher education which is not being met. And that need is there also in a student who got 50%, because the world has thrown up great leaders who were 50%ers and 60%ers. So while it's a good point to start with a high percentage, you can look at your own, talk within your family. You'll see that the correlation of percentage and great performance in the long term is not linear. Initially, it may be. Your CGPA determines when the companies come to employ you, they have to make their life simple. So therefore, I believe that every institution, even those who are taking 10,000 students, they are fulfilling a social need, because that student needs an opening. So I never want to say that there are those who are selective or something. Everybody is doing that purpose. Our purpose was not on numbers, I told you. Numbers we have dealt with in IT, millions. There are 10 million children in government schools alone that we did projects with the government who would never have exposure. Also, we did as part of NIT Limited as a company. But here the idea was that we have to be a role model, which means that everyone coming out of here should become so successful that people say, okay, this place knows what they are doing. Also, for us, it's not a game of numbers. We even a master plan, we built a master plan for the eventual usage of every inch of the 100 acres. There will be 5,000 students, that's all. And therefore, we are evolving and going, because more disciplines will come, many areas will come. This year, we are adding a number of programs. So we have to keep evolving and expanding. So yes, we are selective. We are perhaps one of the few who do a panel interview and give weightage to the panel interview. Even after we've seen their test results and their class 10 and class 12, we mix everything. We take class 10, we take class 12. If they're given a JE, we give a weightage to that, because the child has done all that. You can't neglect that. Whatever the child has done till that time. And then who are they? Tests never really tell us many things. They don't tell us the motivation, for example. They don't tell us social sensitivity. They don't tell us people's aspiration level. They don't tell us the drive of a student. Tests are very difficult. These tests don't do that. So then we decided from the first batch onwards, in fact, the first 3 batches, we had our board members actually getting involved in the interview to decide how will we select these criteria. So now, and we've been doing online, by the way, from day one, when COVID didn't exist. So this time our testing was easy. Now actually even the parent, because the child does it from home. And fortunately for us, COVID made that possible. Everybody had to have a device, even the school. So now even the parent joining in that. We call it an admission interaction process. Because it is as much a student's choice, it should be, as it is ours. So that's a dialogue. So there are 3 members, faculty and admissions and so on. And we're going to increase that now. We're going to get more people from industry also getting involved in the panel discussion. It's online. It's an open discussion where the student asks, okay, what will the university do for me? Just like we want to understand these attributes which are very important for success. So the selection is not only take the top percentage, that is a good idea. It normally works well, but doesn't always work. So we give weightage. We give almost a third to 1/4 of the weightage for this subjective opinion. And of course, the cut-off percentage is good, but that's not a criteria alone. That's only one of the important criteria. So therefore, full personality, potential personality, the aspiration, the creativity, those things which you can't do in a written test, we do that. And therefore, that's why it becomes possible for us to make sure that every student finds a place, whether in a company or a higher ed university or whatever.
So, sir, in your last answer, you mentioned the word COVID, and that just immediately sparked me because, irrespective of what discussion we have, COVID somewhere, it's a part of the discussion. And even in higher education, students, now since the campuses are opening up and yours being a residential program, so, what message would you want to give to those students? Like, how ready is the institute to open up? And, is there any change or any precaution that you're taking up?
Yes, I think there's a lot. But let me also say that, as I mentioned, I'm involved very actively on the board of the high school, the Scindia School in Gwalior. Students have already started coming. And we have to be more careful because that is state laws as well. So class 10 and 12 students have come. They are on campus and we haven't had a single case. It's been 40 days. Before that, there were almost 300 people, faculty, staff, admin, there since March, not a single case. So lots of discipline, really lots of discipline, not difficult, but discipline. Similarly, Indian School of Business, we opened up there as well, both in Hyderabad and Mohali. Lots of cares are going on. And in NU, because it's in Rajasthan, we had to wait for the Rajasthan government to permit. So while they did permit, they said from 18th onward, but we had told the parent that we'll give you 3 to 4 weeks notice because unlike many other places, our students are from all over the country. We are from deep south, east, we are west. So we wanted to make sure that students are staggered, and we have an outstanding head of administration, General A.K. Singh, and he's done to the last level of detail, not only for us, for Neemrana. Actually, NIT contributed to the setting up of a place for keeping local people in quarantine. We created outside the campus. We supported in that, and there's some workers who live not far away because we have the Japanese belt, industrial belt next to us. Those workers make their jugis. We were feeding about 500 families, but again outside the gate, so they are not permitted in. So we had the chance to work on this rigorously, and so that is what the institutions have to do. But I think there's a bigger role by the individual, by the student. So our activities, we try to make them as much as possible to be student-driven. So now, as I said, who's planning for this is already formed group of senior students. Virtually, we are discussing, everybody's connected. And the students will actually drive this on because we are fully residential. So we believe that you can't help a child grow radically in 4 years or 2 years if they're doing master's degree. We want them for 24 hours. So it's a 24/7 campus. And we want all these precautions to be driven by students. So every wing of the hostel, the corridor, students there will take this responsibility because we don't want discipline coming from the top. This is self-discipline. It's self-discipline. So I think the precautions we have taken are enormous, and we're very satisfied with it. And I make sure that our General A.K. Singh is connected to the counterparts in the other institutions where I'm involved so they can compare notes and take care. And to the students, the only thing is the basic discipline I think the world is talking about is just those 3 things. Just keep your mask, keep 6 feet, and wash your hand. I think the world has managed with that very well. And so even though there is a word of vaccine coming, but people are lowering their defenses. That's the dangerous thing. We don't want a second wave in India. At least we don't want a second places where we are responsible. So we just want to make sure that students recognize their responsibility and that they manage this discipline. It's always easier to have senior students work with junior students, they always listen to them more than they do to teachers. It's an old story for all of us. So all that has to be done. I think it's very doable. And I guess also now we are seeing symptoms that the infections are falling, but other countries have seen and have had a rebound because people lower their defenses and start doing irresponsible action then time to time. So at least ours are gated campus. It's a closed campus. So that's what parents like about our campus, because they come and see the place. They say, okay, here we know they're not running to a mall, not running to something. Everything is contained. And security, same thing with our school. And same thing, in the Indian School of Business, it's a campus in a town, but we are working very hard to make sure that all the needs can be met within this, and the students take responsibility. Because this is a training for them. I mean, these pandemics will come. People say pandemics will become routine. So, the students' self-discipline to do these basic things. They're not much, but just discipline. It's a habit. So part of growth, when we talked about seeing people grow, we have a lot of things that happen. We have many spaces in the campus because it's a nice campus, the green campus. We declared the greenest campus in our third year itself. So there we have created a lot of outside spaces. As I told you, behind us we have a hillock. So, and between the campus and the hillock, we working with the government, we made it seamless. So there's no boundary. There's a barbed wire with many openings, right? Other sides are because there is factories and so on. The other side there are boundaries.
On this side, the campus, it's a very beautiful campus. I've been to so I'd rather visit it. So, sir, a final question from my end.
Have you seen?
Yes, sir. Yes, I've seen the campus.
Okay, so then you will see there are many spaces. There's something called a listening tree. It's an old tree. Under that, the students have made a place for 100 people to sit. And all the book launches, Arun Maira's book was launched there, for example, on listening. So students have to learn many things, I think, and discipline is one of them, self-discipline.
So, sir, a final question from my end. Now that students are looking to take in admission this year, so what message do you have to those students and even to the already existing students who are studying at the university? So what message would you want to give to them?
Well, I would say that this has been a common message, whether it's my colleagues in the company or whoever is that, first of all, and our students are somewhat familiar with this. First of all, you have to recognize that what you become is more in your hand than anybody else. This realization is important. So when we talk about aspiration, inspiration, so therefore there's no limit. The limit is set by you. If you don't work on yourself, you can blame 100 people around you, but who suffers? Only you. So there has to be heightened self-interest. You're there for a purpose to grow your life. And we will provide you an environment for growth. A natural environment couldn't be better. I mean, you can, if you see Rabindranath Tagore, the forest university idea. So we didn't have a forest, but we're building a forest on 2,000 acres. So over the years, every student has to plant a tree. Now even students who passed out many years ago, the first connection is, how's my tree doing? Because man is naturally connected with nature. And the trees have become 20, 30 feet tall. And in the 4 years for an undergrad student and 2 years for a master's, you can see your tree grow. And how it's contributed. And how we make sure that every drop of water that goes out of the campus, sewage, everything is processed, made into water, it's pumped up the hillock, and then with drip irrigation coming down, we have a patch of 100 meters running along the length, 1 kilometer length, which has become lush green, behind which is the dry forest. So our idea is, we've demonstrated that man and nature can coexist. So what students think is the wastewater is becoming trees, which is giving them oxygen. They can see it there. So my message would be, first of all, have faith that you are capable of much more than you believe or anybody else gets you. Your marks, your folks who say, oh, you're good, not good. That's in your head. Second is that we are creating an environment where it's 24/7, right? So you don't have to run in a bus and come back in a bus. You have time. Use that time. Build your relationships with people. Go to the gym. Go to the library. Sit on the side under the tree. In addition to classes.